So in terms of your play, you're currently about 30, just under 3,200 MMR. And
yeah, I just in earnest made it into Diamond 3 again. So
oh, awesome. Diamond 3.
yeah,
Fantastic.
yeah, I made it up to Diamond 2, almost Diamond 1, but I was doing just all like cheesy all-in builds because I was just getting back into the game and just wanted to learn builds that I could execute quickly and not really have to put a bunch of time in. And they worked well. One of them actually was your therapy build versus Hotkeys. Yeah,
Nice.
it worked really, really well. But now that Void Rays are a little more prominent, it's getting shut down easier. And then, yeah, now I want to get back into macro play, which is what I was playing a lot 3-4 years ago. So I've been practicing more of that, but it's obviously more time to learn a build like that than just execute something that you can do in 3 minutes, you know?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the idea, is always trying to be aware of how much time and attention you have, and having realistic goals because of that is so powerful. I think for too many people it's let's just copy, there's a best way to play, there's a worst way to play, and it's like, not really. I mean, there's so many thousands of ways in between depending on your skills and what you enjoy and how much time you have to play and what your strengths are as a player. And I think it's always better to find your own match for that level.
For sure.
So I think that should be
I've
really
always
interesting.
preferred macro, but I just started off with some easier builds to get back into it. But it was really good. I definitely got a better appreciation for the early game economy and just micro in general. So it was good all around.
Awesome. Well, more recently, of course, we've got a great write-up of your builds here. You mentioned you had some games, so let's just get straight into some replays so that we can kind of pass some information. We'll mostly be looking through the notes and talking theory, but always good to have some eye candy for people on the stream, as well as I'll kind of notice a few things just to get a feel for your play. If you hop into chat channel Piggy in StarCraft, so if you just go /join space Piggy, Piggy, sorry, I know a lot of people smell it with an IE, but Piggy. Shoot me an invite and just do a watch with others with the replay. Beautiful, there we go. All right. So
let me just pull one up here. The very first game I played today, I got cannon rushed, and I did not do a very good job at all. So why don't we start with that?
Actually, since we're going to be talking theory, let's save that. I think that'll be perfect to look at, but it's because it's such a specific thing. I want to get more of a feel for how you play in your own game. So if we can look at one that goes for 10 minutes, preferably at least 7 or 8 minutes, that'd be
definitely awesome. Yeah, I actually had a couple good ones. Actually, the last game that I played felt really good. So that's probably the easiest.
Okay.
That is the one.
So I'll start writing some notes down the bottom as well. Just here, make me the lobby host once we're in there. So just right click me, promote to lobby host, and I'll be able to fast forward back and forth and zoom around and all that. I'm an old-fashioned man who needs to be in the driver's seat.
Yeah, for sure. Terran is the one matchup that I am practicing right now. And the first 5 or 6 minutes feel pretty good. Usually in a game, something always happens that messes me up. But in practice, I can hit the, what are they? I've got them down somewhere. 50 drone benchmark at 430 is pretty easy. And 4th hatchery at 6 minutes. I'm following the 2-on-1 build that is on SC2 Swarm right now.
So the so playing so they have a build for countering 2-on-1, is it, or something like that? Basically,
yeah, but also just the general idea of getting up to 50 drones by 430. The queen and I've noticed now the 28 versus 30 hatchery is something I've noticed a lot of other players doing, and queen count is also something I've noticed different, but I have quite enjoyed the higher queen count. I'll have 7 queens, 30 zerglings, and +1 on the +1 carapace on the way for the first attack if it comes that way. Usually I'm seeing Hellions, which is this game, so I had to kind of deviate a bit.
Okay, awesome. All right, cool. So that's awesome. Let's just ignore that game for a minute, as much as we love it. And this is all great info, and it's all going into the mental bank. So you said Zerg versus Terran. I just want to get that build up. Have you linked it here in your document at all? That
No,
SC
but
Swarm
I
article?
can,
Yeah, I'd love to, if you
it
can
for
grab it for me, just to make sure I'm looking at the correct one, because that's always interesting. I love that website. I think there are a bunch of passionate nerds who are writing up some really good stuff. There's like Pool First, ZVT opening, Lingbane Hydra, beginner guides maybe. I don't know, where would it be?
I just linked it in Discord, but Zerg
Beautiful.
versus Terran standard ZVT.
Standard ZVT guide. Okay.
Right now, I just kind of want to learn like as standard as possible, kind of for all the matchups for the most part. Although I am really interested in 12 pool for Protoss.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I really like one matchup to be at least a bit more aggressive than the others, but even in our macro matchups, just make sure there's a clear cutoff point of workers and a clear swap into, hey, I'm making lots of units and kind of getting better at doing things with the units. Because a lot of players don't improve at that. Like they hit the macro really hard, but they never switch gears. So as long as we like give ourselves some sort of limited scope, whether that be like I only play Hydra Bane or I don't go to Hive, or maybe like there's just stages or something, some sort of definition, just to make sure that you're getting a lot better at your engagements and not kind of tunnel visioning on just try to take 1 billion bases and 1 billion drones.
For sure. I've definitely lost way too many matches on engagements alone. But I guess my overall goal for Terran would be to get 66 drones, like 3 bases kind of going, and then react to them.
I think that's a good way to do it. I mean, to just mass units by default from that stage in the game is a general safety timing. That's a good way to play. And you could even do it with, you know, there's so many ways you can adapt and adjust that. But you want to be playing solid. You want to be improving your fundamentals. We've got a whole bunch of sessions together. So let's start with mechanics before we go any further, because we do want to learn macro. We do want to play quite solid. Yes, we want to do a 12 pool against Protoss. Yes, we want to learn a bit better cannon rush defense. But let's go through. So you've put a lot of interesting notes here. Let me just go through. We've got hotkeys. Okay, ideas. Ability separation across physical keyboard keys. What does that refer to?
This is, it's something actually that I kind of, I heard you talk about something. I know you use the core, and it's not something I'm really interested in because of the habits that I've already built. But one time, I don't remember exactly the context, but you were saying something like, oh, I accidentally hit this when I was intending to hit this. And it got me thinking, because I was using grid for a while, where basically every ability is on Z. I was like, oh, maybe for compositions, like I should separate that. So, you know, I'm doing this ability, I'm going for this key, and for this ability, I'm going for this key. And then I also watched a video where Scarlett was talking about this a lot, and the context for her was accidentally making Hydralisks when you're trying to attack move. So I assume she's using standard and moved that away from A. But I was also getting some things like, you know, I think everyone has blown up Bainlings when you're trying to spawn more. But I was, during inject cycles, if a queen wasn't there, my inject was on the same key as spawning an Overlord and then spawning a Dropper Lord for a while. So I just had to separate that away from that. And basically, I'm wondering more about the concepts of the core setup and how I can implement those into my own, because I've got a really weird custom setup now. And conceptually, I was thinking that this was maybe something that you've achieved more with the core, or is that something that you like? What are the reasons that you're using that?
So for me, I mean, there are people who know a lot more about the core than me and this sort of stuff. For me, I basically just took what other people had designed and said, okay, yeah, I'll use that, because before that, so this was 2015, I was already competing at a pretty high level, but I didn't use camera hotkeys, camera locations. I only used a few fingers on my keyboard. I wasn't using all 5 fingers on my keyboard hand, like really lazy typer and everything. So it was just an inefficient way of doing things. And I was like, look, 100%, I've seen camera hotkeys in action. They look beautiful. I'd seen Snoot playing, and he'd spent a big couple months revamping his mechanics in like early Heart of the Swarm, I think it was, maybe late Wings, probably early Heart of the Swarm. And I watched him first person at event playing, and just his mouse accuracy was better because he'd slowed his DPI way down, and he gone and used fleet hotkeys is what he used, but that's kind of like a predecessor to the core. That basically inspired the core in many ways, in that it kind of says, hey, we want the camera locations to be easier to reach than the F keys, so we're going to just layer those underneath regular hotkeys. So with like fleet keys, it's just like Q, W, E, R, A, S, D, F are your camera locations. You just need to hold down a modifier while you do it, right? And that's what the core does as well, except on the right-hand side of the keyboard. There's the core light, which still uses the left side, but it does the same thing as fleet keys. So other things that they've kind of designed in there, and I'm sure the people in the Discord, if you want to go deep on this, could give you a lot more info on that. But they've made it so consecutive buttons, right? So anytime you've got a spellcaster on a control group, right, you want to select the control group, and then you want it to be a completely different key that is the ability that you use, because you want different finger for both, so it can be almost instantaneous. One finger with just a tiny millisecond between the two, right? So you don't want to be doing select with one finger, press the hotkey for the spell with that same finger. It's just extra delay. So they've just made sure you build in little things like that, but you could do that with a normal setup as well, kind of just as long as you're being logical with it.
Yeah, I've got a bit of that. A lot of my habits are kind of like rocking back and forth between my index and ring. So that's what I've basically developed. So I think I've got most of that kind of handled. And I've been writing in here for a while. So I wrote, I figured out the solution, and, I wrote fix or whatever. But for 4 and 5 in here, I was wondering to get your opinion on that, which is basically... I don't know if you know Sort of's method for spawning army units, but select all larva is duplicated on every unit that you can spawn. So rather than selecting hatcheries, then a key to select your larva, and then army, you can just rapid fire.
It's the same key as the unit you're building. So say you've got to press R for roach. I know it's not R for you, but say it's R for roach. You just hold down R, and that both selects the larva and builds the roaches. Or you press R 4 times, and that builds 3 roaches, because one selects the larva and it builds 3. I use the same thing. That's built into the Core Plus as well. So that's something, I never have to select larva anymore as well. That's something which a lot of people who watch the stream probably don't realize. So yeah.
Right. What do you do with Queen, Burrow, and Pneumatized Carapace then? I guess you've got a lot more keys there with Core.
Yeah. So those are pretty rare upgrades, right? So Burrow, to upgrade that's on open square bracket, I believe. So I've got for that.
The actual key, it doesn't really matter, but do you keep the ability to burrow on the same key as the evolve burrow? Or are they separate?
I believe I do. Let me check.
Or does that really matter?
Evolve burrow is a closed square bracket, whereas actually burrowing is open square bracket. Unburrow is apostrophe. Okay,
yeah. So sometimes I feel like I can over-engineer things, but that's interesting to know that you're doing the same thing as Sort of, and I've thought of doing that as well. The other one, 5, is just how separate are your ability keys between units? So, is Fungal different from Blinding Cloud, or do you just have one key that is cast ability?
Yeah, I just have like 3 different that are like ability keys, and I just have them overlapping. So it's like J minus symbol. it's funny because like I don't normally verbalize these, or a semicolon, an open square bracket are my 4 different spell hotkeys that get repeated over and over again.
These are thoughts that I've had for a little while, and I feel like for the most part over the past couple of weeks that I've been playing, I have kind of answered a few of them. So that's good. We can kind of move on from there. But just underneath...
Just to answer that as well, just like, because there are always going to be little sloppy mistakes and things. And sometimes it is just like, hey, the staying calm in the game is kind of the solution if it's not too big a thing. Right? So you don't need to engineer a solution, everyone. You talked about accidentally detonating Bainlings. I had detonate Bane as the same button as spread creep tumor. So I'd go around and sometimes I'd miss box and I wouldn't actually select the tumor, and I'd detonate all my Bainlings. And the thing is, I did that a lot, but I also realized my creep spread was pretty haphazard as well, and it was all part of me just being frantic and not in control in the game. And I do it super rarely now, very rarely, because I'm just like much more like, hey, like I realized what I was doing, right, was I would go around my creep and I would be like, box tumor or click or control click, spread tumor. I'd then be selecting my army as scrolling over to the next one, like just tapping to my army for no reason. I'm doing an uninterrupted creep cycle. I'm not doing anything else. So why am I selecting my army in between each one? I just don't need to. So it was giving me, I just had this random habit of like, let's be selecting different things. I wasn't building units, adding them to my army, and then selecting my army for a reason. It wasn't I'm macroing in the middle of doing this to make use of my time. It was just a random compulsive habit. So I managed to remove that, and now it doesn't happen very often. So just be aware of that. Sometimes it's in a high pressure situation, we're just panicking and spamming things. Sometimes just slowing down and being a little more organized in those chaotic situations, coming up with like a playbook, a set little A, B, C for those situations, and trying to do that under pressure can sometimes solve those issues. So just be wary. If it's like a little niche issue, or niche, as you guys would say in America, it's not always worth changing a mechanic to fix, right? It's sometimes it's a pretty small thing.
In probably the past 2 months, I've changed my hotkeys like 2 or 3 times, and a couple of the changes were terrible. And immediately I changed back and I thought, no, I just stick with the habits that I know and fix the things that are not working. Don't completely reinvent everything.
Sorry, I mispronounced niche. Chat's calling me out. Sorry. You guys say niche, do you? No, I've heard a lot of Americans say, like, can you say it? Say it for me.
I would say niche, but I'm Canadian.
Oh, you're Canadian. Okay, that's why you sound like you got a few hundred extra IQ. No. I've heard people say it very much like niche.
Yeah, I've heard
I'm
it like
probably
that too,
butchering it a little bit, but I've heard a lot of Americans say it like that. I swear, right?
I figure they just don't know how to pronounce it correctly.
But it's an American English thing. They've been around for 400 years or 500,
Is
whatever
it really?
it is. It's there's a lot of words where I'm always being elitist, and I'm always like, you guys are just saying English wrong. And don't get me wrong, Americans, British, Canadians, Australians, we all do that a lot. Like, there's Norwegians who have better English than a lot of us. But I think, yeah, there's a lot of, if it's common usage, then it becomes language. That's how language works, right? If enough people are using it, it's real. So anyways, I'm going to make, back on point. Don't want to waste your time. It's just, I thought I'd address that, but bad segue. Let's focus back on the mechanics. So, was that the last question? Sorry, was there anything else?
Yeah,
there?
if we keep going under that to other questions and thoughts, these are pretty quick ones, I think. That should just be like a yes or no, or. But, is stop used for anything other than Nidus Worm? Because everything else has hold position, right? So.
Yeah. It's for stopping to unload a Nidus Worm. Stopping my siege tanks attacking a building if I accidentally attack a building, because you can't hold position with siege tank.
Right.
So that would be the same with lurkers. If you accidentally start killing your own buildings with lurkers, you won't be able to hold position to stop.
Right.
Actually, you could hold fire with lurkers. Yeah. So maybe it's okay anyway. Yeah, that's interesting. Let me see if I've even got a hotkey bound for it. I think it's H for me. Let me check. Stop is H. Yeah. I'm trying to think, because I feel like I had the same question a few years back and was like, ooh, I need it. And I don't know if it was just for the Nidus Worm. I feel like it was just for the Nidus Worm. Same with unload transport as well. So if you want to stop unloading a transport, because if you've told it, where you left click unload and click it on the Overlord, if you hold position, it's going to keep unloading. Same with a medevac or a warp prism. So yes, you do need stop for that. I actually regularly use stop with my warp prisms is the most common time I do it, because obviously you're always using warp prisms and medevacs. I don't use it very much as Zerg because I'm not doing drops which I need to cancel as much. But if I am Baneling dropping, I do need to press stop. Sometimes if I'm like, oh shit, there's like 3 stalkers and the probes have already run away. Quick, stop unloading and get back to the dead space. We'll come back later. It doesn't need to be super accessible though. It is a pretty rare thing. So it's not like, oh, that needs to be an easy to reach key.
Yeah, it's far from me right now. Speaking of Banelings, do you ever toggle the structure attack? Or do you just click on the one building you want to kill and then go for
I just click on it.
line?
Oh, you can turn that on autocast, so they'll just blow up on any building near them, is it?
Yeah, but I think they would probably continue just going towards the wall, right?
Oh, they just blow up on command centers, anything. I mean, if there's units within aggro range that are fighting units or attacking workers, they'll go for them. But otherwise, if the aggro range is pretty small, like, sometimes you send units to go defend something and they just stand there while drones next to them are dying. Like, the aggro range is not that big, so that, you'd have like 20 just walk into a command center or something like that, right?
I don't even have them bound right now, and I haven't seen you do it on stream. So
Totally forgot you could do it. That's why I asked you. I was like, wait, what? I was like, oh my God, I forgot you could do that.
Do you ever explode Bainlings manually, or just when they're burrowed?
I do. Yeah, I do. Not that often, but every now and then, like if I see a bunch of lings coming at me and I've got like a Bainling on a high ground or in the grass, I might like walk forwards and manually detonate it. Just because if I attack move and there isn't a Zergling right up against it, it might delay it just a little bit longer. I also manually detonate them versus Widow Mines. So versus Widow Mines, right? Because if I ambush them and all their mines have to panic clump in a clump, I will just box my Bainlings over it and just go manually detonate. Sometimes I accidentally detonate like 10 whole Bainlings. You only need 3, but I'm like, it's worth it because I'm killing 7 Widow Mines before they even fire. So I'll take the awkward trade. It's still a good trade for me, right?
Cool.
Same thing against High Templar. I'll usually, if I get Bainlings in there, I'm shift clicking them on the High Templar in the Protoss army. But sometimes they like can't quite get up against them because there's like a sentry or an adept in the way. I was like, I might just occasionally box them and just blow a few of them up. Since I figure they're in range of the High Templar anyway. Yeah, when I run them in a mineral line, I do manually detonate them a fair bit as well. So like if we look at, open the stream by the way, so I can show you things.
Okay.
And let me know, hopefully, it might give you an ad, but just get the stream open and you can leave it muted. Obviously it'll be a few seconds delay, but it shouldn't be too long. Let me know once you've got it going.
Just loading up now.
No worries.
Do you ever rotate the camera or anything when to look for cloaked units?
Pretty rarely. There was a funny moment.
I've heard people talk about that, but I'm in the stream now. I've heard people talk about that, but I've never seen you do it either.
Yeah, pretty rarely. Sometimes if you need to click on something, this exact map yesterday, Bly proxy hatched here. Parting was killing it, but then Bly kept attacking the wall as well. So he managed to barely squeeze a queen out. The broodlings chased off the adept and the stalker for a little bit, so they had to pull back to not die to the broodlings. Queen ran over here, put down a creep tumor, and then just stood in front of it. And Parting knew, okay, I can't let that tumor get up, or it's going to take me forever to get detection up and retake my expansion. So he ran over and tried to click on it. And normally what you do is, because the queen model, she's very fat, so it's hard to click on something that's just above the queen. Because you go to click above her, and it'll select her a lot of the time. Can't really see it in this case too well. So normally you just scroll up, so she's at the bottom of your screen. So you can kind of see above her a bit easier. But this is the edge of the map. So I don't even know if he tried to scroll as far north as he could, but you could see he was trying to click on this creep tumor and he just couldn't, and it finished and it burrowed. And I was like, oh, that I was like saying to the stream, I was like, actually, if he just rotated his camera quickly, he could have easily got an angle to click on it. So there is like that weird thing where because we're not technically top down, we're on that angle, sometimes things are blocked, like Widow Mine's hiding above a command center or a gas geyser. So what I wanted to show you was just for detonating Bainlings, right? So normally I'd come in, say I was coming in from this side with 4 Bainlings. If I'm really busy, I will just shift click on this drone and then this drone. Because the idea is by the time they get to a drone there, they'll be roughly in the middle of here. And that's the big pack. And if they get to that drone, they'll be roughly in the middle. So you're getting 3 fully saturated mineral lines. But you can finesse it even more, where I could try to detonate like right here and get like 8 drones with 2 Bainlings, right? So just for really fancy micro where I want the Bainlings to blow up in the exact spot, I might try to manually detonate. And I might try to get them in there and manually detonate right in the middle. Make sure they get everything. Because if you shift clicking, it's usually going to do it, but it's a low APM. I've got other shit to do right now. I can't babysit this method. The manual detonation is a cool bonus thing to do when you're really just adding a little bit of finesse on your micro.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, cool. So ping uncompleted buildings to see what they are. You can do that. Holy shit, you're about to teach me something. You've been consuming a lot of StarCraft content.
I have.
Wait, you can ping a building and then it tells you what it is?
Yeah, if it's not complete and you ping it.
Does it say like, oh, you want to attack this structure or something like that?
And it'll say factory or cannon or whatever.
Really? No way. Where'd you learn that?
I don't know. I heard some people in Korea doing it, or they mentioned it. It would have been like an Artosis stream with Scarlet. It may have been that stream with Scarlet.
Apparently, Minute Micro has a thing on it as well. So printf I imagine Printf is probably the one who told everyone about this. Scarlet and a few others might have figured it out as well, but Printf's the one who he figures this shit out so early, so fast. Him and TLO, and if there's a few people like them, Scarlet, who just get games. Have you seen Minute Micro? Have you watched that show?
Yes, I have watched a lot of it.
You played the map as well?
A little bit. Any micro outside of Zerg is like abysmal. So I was doing a bit of the Zerg ones, but
no worries. Yeah, I haven't done too much on it. It's pretty cool though that he's created all these incredibly advanced scenarios.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely check out
I always see the Terran Reapers trying to do that grenade when an adept is shading towards them.
Oh, it's so hard to pull off, dude. I remember practicing that in the map, and I was like, this is impossible. It's so hard. It took me like 30 goes to get it, and then I could only get it like 1 in 5. And then I didn't practice it for a while, and I can't ever get it. It's so hard. But it's really cool to understand all those beautiful little mechanics. So episode 7 specifically, you still need vision on it. Oh,
That's
so you
correct.
can't. Oh, so you can't do it through the fog. Oh,
no. But so I put a note in there. Like I've not had very good luck with it. Like if I'm scouting and it's a factory or whatever. But when I'm getting cannon rushed, I'll use it. Oh, what's a cannon? What's a pylon?
Check your graphic settings. Depending on your do you use like low everything or hybrid or?
I'm low, but textures are higher.
Okay. Because I've had this chat recently with someone who was like, oh yeah, how do I tell the difference? And it was this mind-blowing moment because I was like, what? For me, I can always tell what's a cannon and what's a pylon. So I think that's something like with more practice, you could probably just identify by looking at them.
Is it the size?
Yeah, I think it's the size, maybe the shape's slightly different. So I always know what's a cannon and a pylon. Occasionally I'll click on one, I guess, to double check, but
okay.
I'll
do some practice on my own and just build a bunch to see if I can notice it. But I didn't know they looked different. I guess I'm playing too quick, right?
Yeah. Take a look at them and just see, and you should be able to tell. Thank you very much for the sub, Abela. I really appreciate the Prime Gaming sub. Thank you very much, Abela. Unadopted puppy before as well. Really, thank you guys. Thank you very much. Yeah. So that's okay. That's cool. I actually thought when you said that you could ping through the fog, like where you didn't look at your overlord, you forgot, and you come back and you're like, oh shit, what's that? And you just ping it and it tells you, which was like, that's why my brain was like super like, whoa, how did I not know this? So instead, it's just a way. Does it really? I mean, isn't it the same as just clicking on it? It just allows it to stay on screen for a bit longer, the text to show you in case you're about to lose vision of it, I guess.
That's right. And also you don't lose what you're selected to. So like you can ping and then just keep moving the control group without reselecting it, which is a small optimization, right? It's one click, but.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, and it's 2 buttons you're pressing, but you press them with different fingers at the same time, right? For a ping. So it doesn't really matter. So I think that should be fine. What is the default ping for you? What do you use?
I've got it to Control F right now.
Control F, okay.
Which is kind of weird. So yeah, either way. Anyways,
I'm gonna try that next time I'm streaming. Someone in my chat has to remind me to do this just to try it once or twice and go, oh, because I've never tried it. That's really cool. So Parkanian in my chat has a really good point. So if you have health bars on, cannons have a different number of boxes than a pylon in terms of the health bars because they're 100 hit points less. Do you leave health bars on always?
I think they're on damaged, so I would see it.
You would only see it once they're damaged, though. Yeah, I am a big fan of unit life bars on always. Are there any pros who don't do that? Is there someone you
wouldn't I see the health bar if it's morphing in though? Because it's I mean it's not full, but I don't know if it's damaged. No,
I don't know. I haven't
tried
played damaged. Yeah.
Right. It just got a little cluttered, I guess, but I could turn it off. I could try it or turn it on, I guess.
Yeah, it's clutter at first for sure, but I think it gives a lot of clarity because it kind of tells you where everything is.
Right.
So
I'm also
I know some people.
I actually went away from using a green color because of that. I'm using white. So I think if I turn it back on, it wouldn't be that much clutter.
Oh, really? So do you just use one color for it? Like it doesn't change color?
Yeah, I'm always white, and this could be an over-engineering because I know you're red or blue, whichever you get. But I chose white because health is green. Health is green, yellow, orange, red. My enemies are red, but it's
so you're saying your player color is white, not your health bars, right?
That's right. That's right. No, I tried
Okay.
all health bars as one color, but I couldn't tell when something was damaged really. So the enemy was all
Yeah.
red, and then I couldn't really make that difference. No, my player color is white because then the units are not any color that is the mineral line or energy or anything like that. It just made it a little easier for me to see. But
That's cool. Oh yeah, you've gone sick on engineering all these
I
details. This is
have,
awesome.
yeah,
This is
I
sick.
went really far into it. Basically,
I love
everything
it.
I'm doing usually has like I have a reason to do it. But what happens then is I get to a point if I don't know what to do, then things kind of fall apart.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I'm very specific, and like in some of the builds, it would just say, "Oh, have this many drones by this time," and I was like, "Well, when do I make the Overlord?" So I would go in the replay and just play it back over and over and over. Oh, the math is right here. Okay, this is when I should make the Overlord, and
Okay.
it feels really good. So I'm totally okay with doing that bit of work as well. But
Okay, cool. So how did we get onto this again? This was ping uncompleted buildings,
yeah, I
visual
think
clarity.
the other
Yeah.
ones.
So I guess not being able to see spellcasters in an army when they're at full mana, full energy, that's one of the big reasons with the health bars for always for me. Because
I'm pretty
yeah.
sure I always see the energy. Anyways, I'll put on the health bars and try it out.
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
thing though, for gather for drones, do you have that on rapid fire?
No.
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 I've heard Lambo use that for probe harass, so you don't have to keep right clicking.
Oh, that's cute. Cool, cool,
Okay,
cool.
what I've noticed though is an issue sometimes when you let go of the key, you're in between the command, so it's waiting to be clicked on a mineral, right? But if you're not using it, then don't worry about it too much.
Yeah, that's like
The
a
next
that's a cool
section,
little bonus thing. I mean, some people use that for right click as well, so they can easily do a perfect circle when they're blocking Nexus or a command center or a hatchery going down with a drone. So they can just they don't even need to spam clicks. They just hold a button for right click. I've seen people do that a few times. Like I remember once, I don't know, it was like Leanock or someone was doing it in GSL a few years back, where you could just see like a ridiculous number of clicks going down the marker of the orders in front, and this worker was going in this perfect circle, and the APM was like 1300 or something. And Artosis was like,
yeah,
"What the
well,
hell?" And he was like, "Oh, they're using rapid fire just for the right
yeah.
click."
I do. As far as I know, it doesn't work on right click because I've tried this. But move command, whatever the key you set it to, you can set that to rapid fire. I would say most scenarios it's kind of weird, but I love it for putting overlords on pillars because then you're holding this and you see the vertical line of where the click is, and it's much easier to place them on the pillar if move is on rapid fire.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, and a lot of times people are complaining, oh, my overlord, they always see it without an air unit. I'm kind of like, I don't know. For me, it's quite easy to get it on there, and I think it might be because of the rapid fire.
Yeah, some
So
people,
that's
I
another
think they don't
tip.
have the some people forget to have the thing below the overlord on as well, and like they forget that's what you're looking at,
Right.
the marker
That's
below
right.
the flying unit. And yeah, it's just experience. It's like think about where you click. I think people just get confused by the perspective sometimes, right?
For
And
sure.
you just kind of learn where those spots are. But no, that's cool. If you have a little trick like that that makes it easier, that's awesome.
Just below that are more. This is more like specific things under build orders. So, for your
What
third
about
hatchery,
the Morph Overlord, Morph to Overseer bound for drop overlords? To
yeah,
prevent.
sorry.
Oh,
So you can
yeah,
morph it
yeah.
into a dropper lord and then again into an overseer.
I occasionally will turn a drop lord into an overseer on purpose, just because I'm like,
Okay.
I'm like, oh wait, I need one over here because they got DTs
Yeah.
now to defend my drops. I've picked up my Hydra drop or whatever again and gone back, and then I turn one into an overseer and come back in again. So yeah, I'm not too worried about that. But you can tell that I'm definitely not as detail oriented in all of this sort of stuff. And like I said earlier, those guys who do the core, oh my god, like definitely join their Discord group. Let me get a link by the way before I forget for that, because I think you guys would have some very interesting discussions. So this Discord for, oh damn, Stud Doctor just gifted 10 subs. Far too kind. Thank you very much, mate. Appreciate it.
Nice.
Sorry, I was trying to get my link from my chat, and then it just filled up with gifted subs. So I was like, I was like trying to copy paste this. Like, Stud Doctor doesn't want you to learn about the core. He wants you to use grid.
Yeah.
Join this Discord for help and discussion on the course. That should be the link. Okay, I'll link that to you on Discord now, so you can.
Perfect.
There we go. That should work. That's the 700 people in there, 283 online. Bring up all these questions that you're asking me, especially the ones where, like, you know, you're still interested in it. You'll have some great discussions, I think, because there's such a group of optimization nerds in there that really want to engineer it all. So I think you'll find some more well thought out counterpoints than I will be able to offer.
Awesome. We already talked about 8 a bit, and 9 is kind of whatever as well. I talked about that. The next section of build orders is definitely more like in-game theory. So the SC2 Swarm thing that I was following said to make your 3rd hatchery at 28, but I've seen a lot of people go at 30. And I wasn't sure why at first, but I did a bit of the math, and the 29th and 30th drone come out quicker, but with a 28 hatchery, when that 3rd hatchery queen pops out, basically from then on, as long as your queens don't get interrupted, you can have constant injects though. So I was just wondering if
is that with building a queen from the 3rd hatchery or running one over from the natural?
Yeah, building it at the 3rd hatchery.
If you're building it at the 3rd hatch, it's kind of coming out a bit later than normal anyway. For like, say, a Zerg versus Terran build, if you were doing like an Overlord speed opening, something where you're mining more gas and spending more money, then you might be more delayed in that queen. Or if you're doing like a 20 hatch. But normally with like a ZVT build, you'd be running a queen over there. Like if we look at this replay, you're doing, I believe, a more standard opening of like a, let's take a little look-see at this.
I definitely have 3 queens. Like I have a queen to be able to do that. And I may have even tried to do it here because I maybe missed something. Yeah, I think I missed my very first inject of the game. So I wanted to make up for that by walking one over. So that should basically be the goal in ZVT, is to walk one over.
Yeah, and I mean, I do the same thing against Protoss as well. It's my 3rd queen will drop a tumor or 2 and then go to inject the 3rd. So with either of those builds, honestly, I think it's all about preference. Some people are just like, like you mentioned, the Reaper's here. Let's just put the hatch down so I don't forget it. So I don't have to put myself in that multitasking scenario, right? You know, if you prefer to do it that way. So I really like 30 or 32 because more drones earlier. It's just a bit easier to get your minerals out nice and early. And I'm happy to handle it getting delayed slightly or whatever. But it's really a minor detail there. So not worth putting too much mental effort into.
Yeah, I figured it was probably pretty minor. The next one that was something that I definitely mess up sometimes is like my mineral lines. I'll have one with 26 and one with 6. So I'm just wondering, like, how you rally and re-rally those hatcheries.
Such a good question. Yeah, that's something I'm very passionate about this, because this is the downfall of many a Zerg player is the disorganization there.
I also watched a Hearthstone video where he's coached by Lambo and Raynor. I don't know if a laser was there too, but
was he playing Zerg?
Yeah, and he rallied all 3 to one mineral line, which the Zerg pros didn't like, but it kind of feels like, at least for like one round, that should happen. I don't know.
So basically, I'm pretty in the dark after my own heart. Yeah, Harstom's an old man like me. You know, we're not. You can do this try-hard Raynor shit. Oh, I'm 20 years old and I have 600 APM while like tabbing to my browser at the same time. Get out of here, Raynor.
Yeah, I'm 30 as well, so I feel
no, honestly, I mean, so this is just the system I have, and I'm sure there's always 1,000 ways to play StarCraft, right? There's so many ways, but so my system for that is basically can be summarized as always rally all hatches to the newest unsaturated base, right? So essentially, early game, it's okay, you've got your main mining, it's on 16 workers, cool, rally to your natural, right? So that we often rally it even at like a minute 20 or something, right? And because I'm manually rallying my eggs at the start of the game. So I'm going to have that hatchery rally to the natural even well before the natural's finished, because I'm manually saying this egg goes builds the gas, this egg goes builds the pool. I can see you're doing that exact same sort of stuff here.
Yeah, same for me. The first drone that goes to the natural basically finishes getting its minerals as soon as the natural finishes. A couple times I've rallied it to the closest mineral patch, and because it gets there earlier, it mines it earlier and starts to bring it back to the main. So basically, the first drone goes to the farthest away mineral patch at the natural.
Yes, absolutely. That's a great way of doing it. And spreading them across those close patches is fantastic.
Yeah.
And it looks like you did double your workers up pretty early this game on those closer patches. So,
Yeah,
some
main
nice.
base I find that really easy to do. Natural, I usually don't, but main I can do that, no problem.
Unfortunately, we did have a small mistake though. So, what's happened here is you've ended up with 3 workers on some of these. I don't even know how you have 16. Okay, there we go. It's the second mineral patch from the bottom right. So bottom mineral patch is the second one. There's a pocket with 3 workers on it.
Yes,
One of
I
those
see
workers should be doubled up on the middle patch. Yeah.
Okay, that's yes. When I'm doubling up them, I'm usually I right now am only focusing on the bigger ones. So I guess that
Yeah.
I'll have to keep an eye out for that.
It's a very minor thing. You're already doing the first step, which is really big, is just make sure, that they're across.
Yeah,
And
it's surprising how big
yeah.
it is. Like a couple times when I didn't do it, like even just like 10 to 15 minerals messes up the rhythm sometimes.
Dude, I've had times I'm coaching people who don't do it, and I'm watching a game, and I'm like, yeah, and they're like, when do I do this? And I'm like, yeah, 4 minutes 30 for the Roach Warren, and they just don't have anywhere near the amount of money they should. And I'm like, what the hell
Yeah.
has gone on? I'm like, dude, I've been watching. You're not playing bad. You weren't distracted by any harassment. And I always go back pouring through it. I'm like, what the hell? The Queens seem to have started as soon as the pool was done, blah, blah, blah. Why are we just behind? And then I look at it, and I look in their main, just by chance, that game, they've got 3 workers on 3 different patches. So 9 of their
Yeah.
16 are mining it super inefficiently. And there's a bunch of nice, close, awesome patches with only a single worker on it. And I go, oh no. And I'm like, it's
Yeah.
so rare that that's going to happen just by chance. But in that one game where luck doesn't go your way and they happen to stack up in this really shitty manner, God, you're losing a lot of money, like a huge amount of money, and it totally ruins your build. So definitely that little bit of attention to detail is good. I very rarely pay attention on that on my natural, never on my third or onwards, but that's kind of cool. So basically my rule is let's always rally to the newest unsaturated base, right? So, if I was playing ZVT, are you going OV speed by the way here?
No.
No? Okay, cool. So I would normally fully pull off gas in Zerg vs Terran because I'm very mineral focused.
That is the mistake. So the way I do this is the drone that returns 52 gas, I'll send that to the third and hide it. Then I'll make the queens and the Zerglings, and then my intention is to remove the second one. But often the Reaper shows up and then I forget.
Oh,
so I'm moving one.
Why 52 gas?
It just feels all right. Like I have 100 gas for metabolic boost, and even later once my layer is done, I have enough for Bane speed. So I'll take one off, and then 2 are on there for a little bit. The second one comes off at 68 or 72.
I think that's too detail oriented. So I think that's something where we want to try to detach you a little bit from these like levels of details if possible.
For sure.
Because I think that's just something where there's something for players who work within nice tight systems and thrive in them, and that's awesome because it allows you to build nice definition, nice attention to detail. But so important is for us to have flexible systems, right? And something like that is just too detail oriented. It's thinking way too far ahead with the gas mining. It's just put them all on or roll off, and just keep it nice.
When
and
do you
simple.
take the 2 off?
As soon as I've got, so basically 88 gas. Like basically I want to have exactly 100 for
Oh, okay.
For the
I've used that. I've used that method before when I was originally playing. Because then the next 3 get you to 100, and then you're at 0 for a while.
Yep.
Okay, and then like the first inject, do you put all 3 into there? Because what I would do is at this first inject, I would fill it again.
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah, because it's 3 minutes 30, and the first inject times out. They're gonna pop right about 3:30.
Okay, so your first inject refills from 0 to 3, not from 1 to 3. Okay, I can do that. I'm familiar.
And I mean, against Protoss, I like to leave 1 on gas. Against Zerg, I like to leave 2 on gas because I want Bainlings against Zerg. Against Protoss, I want to get a quicker lair in some situations. I always want to have that flexibility depending on what I scout. Against Terran, it never does. So that's my own thing. But all I would say 100% sure is we should not be thinking pull 1 worker off at 52 gas or 72 gas or whatever. It's just too much detail, right? because I don't know, maybe you're looking at your resources that much, but for me, I wonder why we're looking at our resources, right? If it lined up with something else where it's like, oh, as I start my 2 queens, I do this. That to me makes more sense because that's something we should be looking at, but we shouldn't really be staring at our resources. I feel that that's something glancing at it every now and then is not bad, but it's the same reason why I don't like using timestamp too often. Like, 4 minutes 26, get a roach warren or something. I'm just not a big fan of it because it's better to know where things fit sequentially in terms of what you have to get done as a player and have a timestamp or have a mineral count or a gas count. Maybe it's just a little bit of bonus extra detailed information, but I feel like we want to make it so things work no matter how the environment changes, right? So as long as we know what the order is and then we can shuffle things in the order, I think the more useful skill when we're learning builds and improving at StarCraft is to constantly be just having a priority list of things we need to do and then shuffling that when needed.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I've heard a lot of other people talk about it like that. So in that scenario, then which drone or when would you send a drone to the third? Because the first drone that I would pull off gas around 60 is what I would make the third with.
I just always use the first drone that builds on my natural every game.
Okay, perfect. So it's got a shorter way to walk. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not writing this down, by the way. So if you want to write that down, please do. Just because we're talking about so many different topics, I'm not sure where to organize it in the best way. I'm writing my system for rallying drones here, but you're very organized and stuff. So I want you to kind of just write down any of those little points we've talked about that you need to. I'm going to keep talking about the rallying the drones while you do that.
For sure.
Just going to keep writing that down here.
Cool. Okay.
And let me know when you've finished typing that.
Yeah, I'm good.
Cool. Okay. So memorize. So you need to reset your rally point sometimes, right? If you lose 10 drones in your main, just change your rally point back to the minerals, right? So there's set points in builds where that happens as well, right? So it's really nice that you've said, oh, my first inject, I'll put back on gas, because there's this nice point where you know there's going to be extra lava when you need it, extra drones, and you're not having to mess with your rally point. You can leave it on the natural, right? So with the rule of 1 gas build, are you familiar with that build order?
I've heard it, but I'm not familiar enough. I think it's like 3 mineral lines with 1 gas.
Yeah, it's don't take any more gases until you've saturated 3 mineral lines, which it looks like you're doing here anyway. If we look at this,
it's not the intended. No, I'm up to like I'll get 4 gases and then maybe a fifth at the third. It's not what I'm playing right now.
It's pretty similar. If you didn't have the second gas, it basically we'd be doing this, and then at this point we'd probably build 1 more round of drones, or at least start the round of drones, and we'd go, oh, I'm fully saturated on 3 bases, sometimes right up to 20, 24 on the third. But the point is, because in that build, you're taking so many gases all at once, you're kind of going such a mineral focus, then redistributing. There's a point where suddenly you're going to be chewing up a crazy number of drones across all your bases for both building extractors, building your evos, your baneling nests, everything else, but also then putting workers on gases. So that's a point where at this point you'd go, oh, we got to redistribute. Okay, I'll put my main to rally back to itself. My natural can rally back to itself. My third can rally back to itself. Why? Because that's automatically going to mean we don't need to micro every drone. And we need to make sure we're not doing that. Because once Hellions are running into our base, once there's drops coming in or harassment, there's engagements, we can't be managing every drone. We need them to automatically go to where they're needed, right? And if you think about that, you might be like, well, wait a second, but there's only 1 gas I need to take in the main. So isn't that main going to get a bit oversaturated? Well, that's where you build your tech usually. So if you're building evos, bane nest, macro hatch, that's going to chew up the same number of drones. Because remember, 4 drones per extractor. It's 1 to build the gas, 3 to mine it. That's a lot of workers. So that means you're naturally going to kind of balance things out. They're going to replace spore crawlers they get built in each base. They're going to get replaced, that sort of thing. So that's like something where you can memorize set points where you do that. But otherwise, it's like rally to the main. Cool, it's ready. Rally to the natural. Cool. Rally to the third. So let's look at when you change this rally point to your third. And
I can tell you when I would want to. So I would make the Evo chamber 1 Overlord, 2 drones to the natural, and then I would rally them all to the third. That's so it should be coming up really soon. At least that's what I just described is what I have been practicing. So yeah, make this, and then so I'm at 14. So I would make 2 drones to fill the natural to 16.
Yep, you've already rallied. You've already rallied those 2 drones to that base to finish saturating. Yeah, and that's
I would rally there.
That's perfect. Like basically saying, oh, you know what? I want to rally ahead of time. I want to get this done ahead of time, right? I want to get the rally point over to that third, and it doesn't have to necessarily be 2 drones, right? If you're not as detail oriented as you are, for anyone else watching, I guess, because you're super detail oriented, or the build maybe is different, it doesn't have to be 2 drones, right? It could be, oh, I'm at 11, but I just built 5 workers, rally them to the minerals, then change the rally point to the 3rd, right? But that's a great system that you're already doing. It's finish the saturation off with a manual drone rally, and then rally to the 3rd so that automatically go into the right place. And that's fantastic. That's really, really good. And if you ever end up with 17 workers, 18 on a base, that's totally fine as well, because you're going to be using them to build buildings. You're going to lose them occasionally as well. So don't get too obsessed. Some people I will see going back and be like, I need to pull 1 worker off this base because the number's red above the hatchery. And I'm like, oh, don't do that. That's such a waste of API. Like if you've got better, unless you've got absolutely nothing else to do, you know, you like, you really, it's not important. It doesn't matter. You're going to need extra drones on that base in a minute when you take gas anyway. Who cares? That drone's still going to mine somewhat efficiently. You know, it's all good. So that's my whole idea, right? Is just change the rally points. Yep.
For sure. You said tech goes in the main, but would you not put Evos in a wall or anything, or create any sort of wall at your natural for ZVT?
No, I don't like walling. It's so easy for them to kill it with a push. So in a lot of weird base trade and very close games, I just hate losing Evo chambers to a frontal push, and I hate losing Baneling Nest as well, or anything like that in a base trade. That's my personal preference. Some people love walls, but I feel like if you're doing a proper macro build, which is what you're doing, you have to cover all the area out here on the natural and the 3rd anyway. So for me, I'm kind of like, you know, whatever. We've got to be out there anyway. So as long as we've got good Overlord coverage, we should be able to position. We want to have enough things to surround it. There are times where that changes. Everyone's diving Hellions. They're all getting really good at it. Everyone's non-stop Hellion production. People are doing gas first builds. Then I might go, you know what? I'll put my double Evo Baneling Nest in the wall so I can just plug the gap with a single queen. And that way, if they dart, because that's where they always dart in. And now I don't need to worry about it as much. Like I might make that adjustment, but yeah. And in that case, obviously it's like, okay, you might need to do a little shuffling, but the idea there anyway is just rally to the newest base whenever you need to reset it. Sometimes you reset rally points to individual bases as needed. You'll memorize set points where that happens in a build order. You could do manual rallying where needed, right? Where, oh, build 3 drones here in the main and click them on the gas, which I think you're about to do. Let's see.
That one,
because we're building Zerglings. Okay.
It should happen pretty soon, though. Yeah, it's deviated enough here, but at 71, usually, if nothing has happened, I would make 3 drones to put it in there. Or if my macro is perfect, it finishes when I'm at 71 supply, at least with the build that I'm doing right now.
How do you remember it in game, though?
Well, at this point, I wouldn't be following the build specifically. I would just kind of conceptually be trying to think, okay, you know, what do I need at this moment, kind of thing. What have they done? But yeah, like I practiced this up to about 6:30 or whatever, but almost no one is doing 2-on-1 right now. So I usually have to deviate, and I'm dealing with Hellions, and I don't know how to do it as well just because I haven't really started learning about it.
Yeah.
But at this point, even just as soon as I see Hellions, then I've abandoned the build specifically. I'll try and still obviously hit 50 drones for 430, and then try and get up to 66. Try and get my 4th base by 6 minutes, which I don't do here. But I'm thinking more conceptually at that point, not specifically for times or supply. But in a game where, say, I push away the Reaper really easily and they are doing the 2-on-1, then I would know at that point, it's 71, so I should be rallying my drones. Or at least those are things that I can use as like personal breakpoints for my understanding of how good I am with the build.
Yeah, so you can analyze it. So having a point like that to check, how do they do with the build it's not bad. Definitely don't want to focus on it too much, because it's something that can kind of change, like we said, you know, based on what's going on in the game. So definitely something that can vary a fair bit. But so if we let's focus on Zerg vs Terran now. I think we've answered all your theory questions, so we should just kind of go into matchup focus. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome. We don't have too much time left because we've covered a whole bunch of different interesting theory topics, but it's good to get a feel for how you play. So, you did a really nice opening, but let's go through some details here of ZVT since they're all just apparent. They're in front of me.
And
let's go.
I would say that this game, we've pointed out a few things that I missed. Late 4th, didn't saturate the 1st, but overall, this game felt probably my best today. Okay. So the criticism here can be as brutal as you want. Point out everything is wrong. I'm specific. I don't want to fix it, right? So But this is probably my best matchup.
Okay, awesome. Well, your opening is very, very tight, and he doesn't do anything to disturb you, your opponent here. So it seems like you're just getting your comfort zone. But
Yeah.
so first things
I
first.
just left this paper. I didn't even worry about it.
Cool. So when do you Overlord sacrifice in Zerg vs Terran? Do you have a set timing that you do that?
I'm trying to do it at 3:30. I think I poke in here and see the third CC. But scouting is by far my worst mechanic. It's the thing I do the least often. Usually I'm just scouting with Zerglings or Changelings to see their army. But yeah, Overlord sacking I don't do enough. And here I left when I saw the third CC.
Okay, so the reason
if I can just finish, this is how I learn a bit. I'll tell you like what I was thinking, and then if you can tell me if I'm completely wrong or not. But I see third CC that early. I think they're probably going to macro up for a bit of a late game, so I don't have to worry as much like for the next, let's say, 30 seconds to make a bunch of army units. I see the Hellions, but I've got a lot of Queens, so that was kind of my thinking. Is that completely wrong, or should I have sacked the Overlord?
I think you should always probably sacrifice the Overlord if you're going to, just to keep it more automatic. Just get more info. All the third command center really tells you is like, okay, yes, that is an early third CC, already finished as an orbital, but they can still do heavy pressure. They're just not going to be able to do a strong 2-base all-in. So, and that it's pretty rare on the ladder, 2-base all-ins against Zerg as Terran. But they can still do a strong Hellbat BC timing, like what we faced off against in this game, right? It's not the absolute fastest BC Hellbat timing by any means, but they can still do strong opening pressure, whether that be Hellion Banshee, Hellion BC, Raven Auto Turret Harass, Liberator coming into your main, Hellions running the third. All of these things are still going to be pretty much the same as far as you're going to, in terms of that. The only difference is there's not going to be stim shields, +1 attack, 3 siege tanks, and 30 marines, sieging up behind these rocks outside your third. Nearly as early. It's going to be minutes later because they're going for the third CC first. So that's all. But let's focus more on our system. We need to make sure our system's good. So OV coverage is a big problem in this game, and that the priorities aren't there. And this is the weakness of everyone who plays Zerg vs Terran in a similar way to what you're doing here, which is one of my favorite ways to play Zerg vs Terran, but it really requires the right vision. So first things first, we need to decide what we want to do with Overlords. Now, if you want to sacrifice an Overlord, you can. If you want to just never sacrifice an Overlord, we can do that as well, but I am a big fan of putting an Overlord on the pillar outside the base. Now, on this map, they can put a Hellion on the top and spot it and get rid of it. I don't know how many players on the ladder are actually doing that, though. So what are your thoughts on that?
It's been kind of hit or miss. I think originally I had it here, saw the expansion, and then moved it back. And that Overlord here is the one that I saw these Hellions coming in with right now.
Yeah.
But yes, I do. I will put it to the pillar at least initially, but I did move it away from here because of the high ground vision.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about that. That's too. I would rather just leave it at the front, and if he bothers to kill it, he does, or use it to just sacrifice every game. If you want 100% reliability, but what we want a reliable system here.
Okay, so here is actually a specific question. So with the sacrificing, if I'm going to sacrifice, should I just only send one Overlord across the map? Because right now I'm sending 2, and yeah, that's something I'm just not sure of. Should I only send 1?
I personally, I just don't like these middle of the map Overlords, even though they can pay off big sometimes, and they can give you a lot of information. They're lower priority. If you want to do it, you do it, but let's just make sure we prioritize 2 things first. Okay. Do you want to scout every game or not with an Overlord sacrifice? And that's just a decision you need to make as a player. And that can, once we decide that, we can move on to the next one.
I would say yes, but it's something that I definitely have to work at. Like I'm barely doing it right now, so it's something I really have to practice. But yes, it is what I want to do.
Let's say 3:30 to 4 minutes, assuming we've seen an expansion, Overlord sacrifices every game.
And I've got that in my notes. The only reason really it's not happening right now is because I'm always practicing against AI often, and then it just doesn't feel as needed, or their buildings are always in a weird spot, But yeah, I 3:30. I'm aware that's when I should be sending my first Overlord in.
No worries. I mean, and the thing is, like, I don't do that at the moment. I don't bother with it because people aren't doing enough hard all-ins. But it's just up to you. I think it's a very good habit to get in. I think most games you see everything. If you came in here and you saw a starport with a tech lab, even if you don't get all the way in to see the fusion core, but often you will, and you can see, okay, opponent's still building Hellions pretty late in the game, which means there's quite a few Hellions. Starport with a tech lab, no cloak going. Haven't seen any banshees. Okay. Well, it doesn't really matter what the starport's doing. All we need to know is, okay, it's just Hellion Banshee, right? And there's a third CC. Cool. So no 2 base all in is coming. So once I've got my standard safety precautions, I can drone all the way to at least 66 drones safely. I know that. I know I don't need to stop any earlier. That's what the third CC tells us. That's all. Okay. Starport factory, that tells us we need spores at our normal safety timing, about 4 minutes 40 usually. Just that's all you need to know. So third CC, I'll write this down. Third CC equals can safely drone to 66, no problem. No 2 base all in, right? And the other one was factory plus port equals safety spore timing as normal. And I would say about 440. Technically, it should be earlier if your opponents are hitting you with really tight openings. But let's not play safe against pro builds until our opponents on the ladder actually demand that respect. Lose some games
when you say,
is better in that case. Yep.
For sure. When you say Starport Factory, is that like it doesn't matter whether they have a reactor or a tech lab?
Let's make that simpler. Let's just call it factory on reactor. Because 90% of the time, that means this, right? Technically, there is a Cyclone Hellion build they could be doing or something like that with 2 factories, but let's just discount that because it's such a small situation. It doesn't happen very often. So factory on reactor, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let's go back to OV coverage. Very important. So OV sacrifice is going to go in 330 every game. It's really important your second Overlord sits out front your base, right? Sees the Reaper, whatever. And then you need to shuffle them out.
So you are only sending one Overlord to their end of the base then?
Yeah, if we want to send another one, we can work that in and figure out which Overlord we want to do that with. But it's really important to get a huge ring of vision around your bases. So right from early on, second Overlord will go out front your natural, and it's going to shuffle further out front as we go. So it would be out here early, and then you're going to put one over here, and then you're going to shuffle the other one on the left out here. Now this map's really fucking easy because there's only really 2 angles they can come from, right?
Yeah.
So if those rocks weren't there in the middle, we'd also need one in the middle, and that's going to be more common on a lot of maps. So you need second, third, fourth Overlord out there, and you need to shuffle those out quite far. Now, if you see a Viking on the map, you can shuffle them back a little bit so that Queens can cover them and keep them alive, but this is going to give you so much warning of where those Hellions are. And the thing is, this Overlord out on the map, this is awesome. It gives you such good vision. This is why I don't want to say 100% don't put that Overlord, a second Overlord on the side of the map. It's just not reliable because Hellions can run past it and then they can run to the right or they can run to the left.
And if they go to their third base along the bottom, then I'm never going to see anything.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the problem because you need to have Queens are slow even on creep, right? So you just need to be in position. Yeah. So your defense is always twofold because you need that vision to kind of see where the Hellions are because defense, what is it? It's basically just Hellions. So Queens up front. And Lings as a net. I always say this is the Trident. It's the classic gladiator setup. You know, the Trident is the Queens. They have to avoid that. And if they dart past the Queens, the Lings are the net that catches them, holds them still long enough, doing their own damage as well, of course. But combined with the Queens, should be able to shut down the Hellions. So you don't ever want enough Zerglings to run off creep and surround the Hellions. That's what we call hoping your opponent's not watching. You know, it's a really silly gamble unless you have a very big attention to detail to setting that up so that you're distracting them and blah, blah, blah. But that's essentially it. Because if you see what's going on, like right now, you then do put these 2 Overlords. And that's awesome. Yeah. But that should be our lower priority. That's afterwards. Right. So that's because 5th and 6th Overlord.
And that's because we saw Hellions, right? And we know it's not 2-1-1.
Even if it's a 2-1-1, that just comes later. Yeah, so there is an adjustment. Verse 2-1-1. Pull all Overlords off the front, right? Because we only want the ones in the dead space because they're easy pickings otherwise. 2-1-1 is not a flexible build. You don't need a lot of vision. You can just put a few Ling spotters out, spread your creep. It hits so bloody late. A Hellion run by with 4 Hellions could be hitting 2 minutes before a 2-1-1 gets to your base. That's why we've got to have that vision early because we're defending with very minimalistic tool set at that point in the game. So that's really important. Get that OV coverage out, and that's going to be really big because basically you have this like flawless macro opening, but if he Hellion dived, you would have probably taken a fair bit of damage because you don't build a lot of Lings until you're 3rd saturated. And it's like, wow, that's mega greed, and you got away with it. So you've got so many minerals, you should be able to just pound your opponent to dust by just having so much more stuff off the back of that. But that's where we kind of lose track of where we are. So first thing, we don't have any Zerglings at this stage. We've only got the 6 from the beginning of the game. And notice there's 6 Hellions, right? Or 5. You could have 6 and a Reaper, which is, your queens aren't enough to deal with that. We want to have a few Zerglings. So if we think about that, we could say something like, I'm just going to be really vague here and say 4 minutes, go up to 15 lings, just to make sure we're safe within it. And if we think about that, you can kind of build that timing in. If no one's Hellion diving, maybe you just keep droning your third. Maybe they're not Hellion diving early. You can get away with it? Sure. We can always adjust to the meta, right? But if we start getting punished by that, we want to be safe. It'd be somewhere, maybe we'd drone our third a little bit first, but we definitely would be wanting to squeeze a round of extra Zerglings somewhere in there just to make sure we've got that extra safety measure, okay?
Okay.
Awesome. You've got your lings, your queens, but then things freeze up. So first things first, we're only going single Evo chamber. So I'm going to go ahead and say unnecessarily overcomplicated, because it's really hard then to remember the second Evo and then remember 2 upgrades on different timers. Carapace is amazing versus 2-on-1. I do love this opening as a reaction, but I want to say that, and I want to give you the addendum. I also did the same Carapace build a bunch. I've stopped doing it because I found it's just too unnecessarily complicated with all the other things you're managing on a 3-base setup. Oh, sorry. Zoom to the start. My bad. So it's too unnecessarily complicated because you've got so much you're already focusing on as a player here that I would rather just slap both Evos down at the same time, start both upgrades at the same time. Yes, I don't have that early Carapace, but it allows me to focus on core fundamentals. Whether you're fighting Hellions or a 2-on-1, the more important thing is drone your third mineral line and then defend all your mineral lines. If you can do that, that's like your whole goal in the first 6 minutes of Terran vs. Zerg in one sentence. Drone the third as quickly as possible and then don't lose too many workers. Hopefully none.
Cool. Around what time would you suggest to get the 2?
Whenever it fits for you. So honestly, if we're going up against Hellion Banshee, Hellbat Banshee, Hellbat BC, anything where they're investing a lot in this, their upgrades are going to be super duper late anyway. So we're really not on a timer with it. I sometimes go very fast double Evos because I want to have those quick upgrades. And I usually just choose one that I like in the current meta. I'm like, I'm really enjoying double upgrades being really quick right now. Other days I'm like, nope, I want to go a lair nice and early and get a few gases a little bit faster. Get my lair, get my gases, get Bainling Nest, Bainling speed started really early, and like 1-1, my Evos might not go down to like 6 minutes in those games because I'm instead just still got a great economy. I'm getting my Bane speed up at a good timing, but my upgrades are going to be a bit behind. So for you, I think just choose what you really enjoy as a style, but just make sure no matter which one we go for, the Evos are paired up. So let's try and simplify that build a bit. We've got to finish up. We're over time here. So I've got to finish up pretty soon. But just to simplify the build, because I think this is really useful stuff while it's all here. What do you think should be the order? And let's do the same order every game, no matter what we're up against in terms of Evos, Bane Nest, because Lings and Queens are going to defend everything you need to. If you build enough of them. We could argue, oh, I like a safety Baneling Nest because it helps me against Hellbats, so I like to go Baneling Nest first. Up to you. What do you think would be something that you just feel comfortable with going every game as a standard? And then we can come up with very precise tells for doing a different thing if you really like a certain reaction in a certain circumstance.
Yeah, I kind of like the queens that I've been doing. Like a lot of queens having like 7, 8, or eventually like up to 10 is kind of nice. So I don't necessarily think I need a safety Baneling Nest. I've usually been taking it with the layer.
Okay.
To try and start that upgrade right when it.
Dude, that's awesome. 8 to 10 queens by default, double Evo, then lair plus Baneling Nest. How's that order sound?
Cool.
That sounds awesome. Like I like that. I'm a big fan. And if you do a bit of micro, queens kick the shit out of Hellbats, which we actually messed up in this game. So this is the point where we lost track of our build. So you did an amazing opening, like I said, and then we just kind of drop our goals. And the most important thing always here is what do we do once we get those 3 mineral lines up, okay? So that's kind of your order there, your gas order, right? Is double Evo, then Baneling Nest, gas order, right? But before that, 8 to 10 queens by default, what do we do once we saturate our 3 mineral lines? If you take the second gas early, that's totally fine as well, up to you. Or if you want to do it more like a rule of 1 gas where you take all 5 gases, doesn't matter. The important thing is going to be we need to go for a 4th base plus 5th base or 4th base plus macro hatch very, very early. And since you're a player who struggles in the chaos, maybe we can do both, 4th, 5th base, and macro hatch. What do you think about that?
That's cool. I've been in my notes. I've been trying to do fourth and macro at 6 minutes, or kind of like when the bane speed would end around there, I think.
So we want it to be way earlier than that. That's one of those weird specific tells again, or links where only if we go for a fast lair and a fast bane nest is that going to link up. In general, no matter what build you're doing, we want to make sure this is just tied to it's what you do next with your minerals. So at this point, you've got your queens out, you've droned 3 mineral lines, you get your zerglings for safety, then you go back to droning because you got to go up to 6 gases, right? That's just a natural thing that you're doing, right?
Okay.
And while you're doing that, you're going to float a shitload of minerals. No matter what gas order, like you're just going to get minerals. So basically the way you go is just spend it. That's what you do next with your extra minerals. Now that's awkward for some people because we look at the replay here, you go, well, I've got 600 minerals. Do I do it right now? Technically, no. The reason is you've got 7 lava. So in general, if we're ever doing when you have enough minerals as part of the build order, it's always after we do a macro cycle, after we go inject.
Yeah, this is actually something, if I can ask you this really quick before we go, with the macro priorities, you've mentioned spend larva, army, and then overlords. Why not the overlords first? Because sometimes when I'm making army, I don't have any larva left. So is that just bad macro on my part?
Most people I coach these days, I tell to do overlords first because I always ask them what they prefer, and I'm like, yeah, which one do you prefer? You know, and they're like, oh yeah, I like to build. So inject, overlords, then units, because they don't want to forget it, you know, like you said, same thing.
Yeah.
So for me, I've got enough APM. I'm happy to, often what I'll do is even with the really high repeat rate on the keyboard, I'll take my finger off the key and at the right time to save a few lava. And I can judge that even when I'm building 20 Zerglings. Like that's just experience. I've played too much StarCraft. Don't try to do that.
That was my next question. So.
The other thing is I'm very good at juggling tasks. Once again, played too much StarCraft. So I can say, put that down the priority list. Basically I know what I've got to do right after my macro cycle. Like, oh shit, no lava. I can only build 1. I know I want to build 3 or 4 more. So I'm going to do the next 2 tasks, and I've already shuffled in below those next 2 tasks. Try again. Select the hatcheries. A few more lava will have popped out. Build as many overlords as I can with it. It'll be 3 or 4 overlords, maybe 5, and then continue. So I'm very good at kind of sidling. There's that list, and I'm just shuffle this 2 tasks in when a few lava have popped out.
Cool.
Way simpler if you just build overlords first. That's also something because for me, at a higher level, a higher speed, a higher awareness, I'm building those units and I'm looking at my supply while I'm doing it. Because I'm kind of still automatic at that point. I guess you could technically do that while you're injecting, but I'm kind of going, oh, I just lost a lot of units, didn't I? I've already built too many overlords. I can skip overlords this cycle. Or, oh shit, you know what? I'm actually already almost supply capped. Okay, I gotta build lots. So for me, I guess it's as I'm injecting and as I'm starting to produce, I'm kind of weighing up and adapting. But we definitely want to start, before you get to the level you can do that, you want to be much more of like I got 3 bases, I build 3 overlords, or whatever the system is that works for you.
Is it meant to be like 1 overlord per hatchery or per injecting hatchery is what I've heard?
Yeah, like one per hatchery is probably just a good rule of thumb that a lot of people like. Cool. For me, I like to think of it in terms of the supply gap, where it's an expanding supply gap. So 35 out of 45 or 46 is good, right? That's a good, plenty of room there because it's still early game. But once you get to like 80 supply and you've got 2.5 bases mining, like this stage, we got almost 3 mineral ions. Like, shit, man, I want to be 90 out of 140. You know, I want to have 50 free supply. And once I get to 120 supply, 130, I want it to be out of 200, right? So just that idea of an expanding supply gap is what makes a bit more sense for me, because it does exponentially jump up a little bit more than just, I'm building 1, then I'm building 2, then I'm building 3, then I'm building 4. So for me, it's like a little bit of a bigger gap to make 100% sure that as I get busier later on in the game, there is no chance of getting supply blocked.
Cool. That makes sense.
Awesome. So in this game, you got really distracted because you didn't have those next goals in the build super prioritized here. So amazing build to 5 minutes, even though we got away with being a little greedy. If you'd just gone a bunch of hatcheries, Evo, started taking gases, blah, 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 kept doing all these tasks, it would have been incredible. But you kind of like run your lings across the map, which just
that's one of the worst things. Yeah, I do that far too often.
Yeah, I always call that the scouting army, which like a lot of players who F2 way too much do because they just can't deselect units. And I always, whenever I see someone scouting with their army, I always go, oh shit, that's a Platinum League habit. And I know a lot of people make it right through to the top of Diamond 2, sometimes even Diamond 1 with the scouting with the army habit. But it's a real bad one. It's like, don't be just running your army around in the fog. No. What if a drop comes in?
My problem usually is I misunderstand the state of the game and think I can do damage.
Yeah.
So that's usually what happens with me, and I'll end up throwing units.
Yeah, you want to go back to whenever you make a half-baked assessment like that, you want to go back and analyze the replay and go, what did I actually see that made me think that? Or was this just a vague feeling? If it was more than a vague feeling, let's try and improve it. Let's work on it. Let's improve the understanding over time, and we can kind of do what we can with that. So all right, we've gone a little bit over, but that's fine. We've got 5 hours, so I'll just tap that into the next session. We'll try and do a little bit of a quicker one. The next one if we can, depending on how we're going. Who knows? Maybe we'll be just as deep on useful information, and we'll see what we can do. But last point here. So just try to pull back those queens individually in this scenario, and spam transfuse would have been amazing. I just don't think you reacted quick enough. I think you were a little surprised. But if you just pulled these queens back one at a time in a bit of a bigger arc and was dropping a few transfuses, would have been a beautiful engage. Now, the mistake your opponent made here is he should have disengaged at this point. If he simply gave his Hellbats a move command and then another attack command, they would all change targets to the Zerglings. And the ones on the left, he could even manually bring over to clump in a bit more of a ball. Notice he doesn't do that. So they keep attacking the queens until those queens die. And that's when they reacquire a new target. Huge mistake from your opponent. And Zerglings are a crazy high damage unit, so he gets punished for it.
Yeah, I've definitely noticed in a few of the games that I've won, it seems the opponent doesn't really manage their army very well sometimes. So yeah, I've noticed that for sure. Like, I didn't, that happened. I didn't think, I completely pushed that back. I was like, that wasn't quite perfect. And I think they could have done better. So I'm at least aware of that a little bit.
For sure. I guess the final point would be, I haven't had a chance to check your macro cycles properly. I'm going to put a note here in the coaching. How good are we at doing this consistently? And that's really important because this is a game where you are floating a lot of money, and a lot of it's not building the extra hatcheries, but there was also points where we're pulling queens out of our main and natural to the front without having new queens almost ready, or sometimes not even building to replace them as injecting queens. And I've also noticed that while you are, I think, queuing injects, you're not always doing a full cycle at once from what I've seen in this game. So there are times where you're injecting one hatchery and then you're not injecting all three at once, I believe. And that's something to watch out for because that's a bad habit. Unless you are super fast and you've got everything done, which you never do as a Zerg, you never do. You should almost never do that. It should always be a tight, organized cycle, a subconscious thing that just happens while we're taking stock of the game, while we're looking at the minimap, while we're thinking about other things. If we're just going, this hatch hasn't been injected, let's inject this hatch, it can be kind of nasty. So that was a full cycle. That was good. That was good. Let's check the next one.
I'm definitely always trying to do a full cycle, but I'll focus on my army too much. And I'm doing camera location injects.
Sorry, it was a full inject cycle, but it actually wasn't a full production cycle afterwards on both of them. So that is actually a mistake. So look at this again. You did inject, inject, inject. Did we build afterwards though? Did we spend all of our lava? Watch this. So we've only got 3 lava because we just built Zerglings. So fair enough because we were in the chaos of a battle. But we then morph Overseers and we try to get aggressive. Okay, fair enough. We want to do a little counterattack. That's okay.
Yeah, that seems to be just subconsciously how I work, which I don't think is the best way always, but that's definitely what I was thinking here, is get something done. And I feel like I kind of did.
You did? It's just you're hemorrhaging because you forgot the hatcheries in the next part of the build.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you're adding to the chaos of the game at a point where if you A-move that army 3/4 of the way across the map to a staging point here and said, when I'm ready, I will come and attack with that. And you said, okay, let's make sure I've ticked off my list. Macro hatch, 4th base, 5th base, 6th base, inject, inject, inject. Start the second upgrade, start the Bane speed. Okay, cool. Maybe my army's been sitting there for 20 seconds while I did that. But if you're floating money, any second you're not focusing on your macro, you're not fixing that problem, is massive damage, right? So if you've done a macro cycle, if you've just spent all your money or you've got on the road to doing that, and then you do that little attack, or then you do this little move around with your army, awesome. That's great because it's not costing you anything. So it's just about that prioritization and make sure you've finished your task before you move on to controlling your army. So whenever you defend an attack, especially if it throws into chaos, the first thing is get back on track with your list, get back on track with your build order, your macro, do that. Don't be initiating another fight because you're not ready to do it. You're already thrown off from the previous fight. So until we get back on track, we'd much rather slow the game down for a moment. And if you can do that in an organized fashion, it usually doesn't delay your counterattack by very much, but it will give you such more control over your spending, your ability to use that early game macro you powered into, you'll crush it. So just be very disciplined about letting yourself run away with controlling your army. Try to make sure you have that voice in the back of your head that's saying, wait, have I ticked everything off my list? Have I finished my most important tasks for this point in the game? If I have, do a full macro cycle and then go, bam, that's not costing me anything. So if you try to have that prioritization, your attention is a resource, do things in the correct order, I think you'll look way better. Whereas this game, it felt like once the fighting started, you're spending maybe 60, 70% of your APM either looking at your army or looking at your overseers, and it feels like your adrenaline's pumping, your blood's pumping, you're staring at his army. You're really watching him rather than thinking about your side of the map and just focusing
You're
on
in my head. Everything you're saying is like,
I've been there, man.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've been there. I still go there sometimes. Not as much, but I still have games where I'm so worried about the opponent. We just forget about what we're doing. So hopefully leave you with those points for now. I mean, we can set up another session soon and get on into it. But I think this is a really good starting point, is just try to make sure you've got that list in terms of the order. If you look at any of my build write-ups on Spawning Tool or anything, you'll notice that I'm very much detailed at the start with supply counts, game timers, and it becomes more and more just a general order of things that need to get done. And if you can try to embody that same viewpoint yourself, I think you'll be much more adaptive off this great early game you've developed and kind of build that into the mid game. And I think that should be really good.
Cool. All
right. Hot damn, man. All right. We went a full half an hour over, but that's okay. Don't worry about it.
Nice and even.
I'll just count it as that. So we've still got 3.5 hours to go, and we can be super detailed in the others because we won't have all the mechanics. We can have replays with specific questions. We can choose a matchup for each session. We can continue with ZVT and pick that up, or we can touch on a few different matchups, look at a rebuild from each. Lots of ways we can do it. Hit me up on an email, on Discord, and we'll set up the next session.
Perfect.
All right, mate. I'll catch you next time.
Thanks a lot, man. Take care.
Good night.